This is the crucial detail everyone missed in Aston Martin's nightmare preseason. While the lap times look disastrous, what Adrian Newey has just done to the AMR26 behind the scenes could trigger a massive structural shift inside the team, one that changes everything about their long-term title ambitions. Because this isn't just about being 4 seconds off, it's about a reset in philosophy. Aston Martin arrived in 2026 carrying sky-high expectations, a brand new factory, a state-of-the-art wind tunnel, a full works partnership with Honda, and of course, the most decorated designer of the modern era walking into Silverstone with a clipboard and total authority. On paper, this was supposed to be the launchpad year. Instead, after Bahrain testing, Pedro de la Rosa bluntly admitted, "We are slow." Lance Stroll said they were 4 seconds off, and even the ever-measured Fernando Alonso conceded they were on the back foot. But there's a catch. What the stopwatch doesn't show is what's happening inside the garage. What if this painful start isn't a failure, but a deliberate compression phase? What if Newey is sacrificing early performance to build something far more dangerous for the second half of the season and beyond? Before we move on, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss out on any of our latest videos. Let's break this down properly. Now, let's go deeper. The first thing we need to understand is compression. Aston Martin's wind tunnel only became fully operational for 2026 development in April. That's roughly 4 months behind several rivals in Formula One development cycles. 4 months is not just a delay, it's an entire concept validation phase. That's hundreds of runs, thousands of data points, multiple aerodynamic philosophies tested, rejected, refined. So when Adrian Newey arrived, he didn't inherit a mature concept, he inherited a ticking clock. And here's what most fans miss. When time is limited, elite designers don't optimize details. They prioritize architecture. Architecture means suspension philosophy, cooling layout, gearbox packaging, side pod volume distribution, weight distribution windows for future upgrade flexibility. It's the skeleton of the car. Aston Martin isn't just designing a chassis. For the first time, they're building their own gearbox and rear suspension. Instead of sourcing from Mercedes, that alone changes the aerodynamic platform completely. The way the rear end interacts with airflow, the diffuser expansion characteristics, the anti-squat and anti-dive geometries, all of it shifts. If you look at how Newey historically operated at Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull Racing, one theme repeats. He designs cars that unlock performance over time, not immediately. That's critical. Now let's analyze Bahrain. 206 laps across 3 days, around 3.5 race distances. That sounds decent on paper. But look closer. Lance Stroll lost critical mileage to a power unit issue. They missed significant running on day 3 due to a mechanical problem, and Alonso's longer run pace lacked consistency. If you study long-run deltas from comparable midfield teams, the AMR26's degradation curve wasn't catastrophic, but it was unstable in medium-speed transitions. That usually signals platform control problems. In other words, the car isn't holding a predictable aerodynamic attitude through direction changes. That's not necessarily a concept failure. It's a correlation problem. And correlation is exactly what happens when wind tunnel data, CFD simulations, and real-world track behavior haven't fully aligned yet. Remember, their tunnel started late. That means less time to iterate discrepancies. Now, let's introduce the second variable, the power unit. Aston Martin becomes a full works partner with Honda in 2000. But this isn't a continuation project like Honda's final years with Red Bull. This is a ground-up rebuild under new regulations that dramatically increase electrical deployment dependency. The 2026 rules shift the balance toward energy management sophistication. If the combustion-to-electric deployment mapping isn't fully optimized, you can easily lose multiple tenths per straight, maybe more. When Stroll says they are 4 seconds off, we need context. Were they running conservative energy modes? Were they protecting cooling systems? Were they experimenting with deployment windows instead of chasing peak lap times? Testing lap times without context is noise. What matters is intent. And this is where Newey's behavior becomes revealing. Pedro de la Rosa described a powerful moment. After a difficult day, Newey leads the debrief, speaks clearly, and the entire room aligns. No internal disagreements, no scattered development theories. That is seismic, because Aston Martin's biggest weakness in previous seasons wasn't funding. It wasn't infrastructure. It was convergence speed. They often introduced upgrades that looked promising in simulation, but didn't translate on track. Development stalled mid-season. Momentum faded. What Newey appears to be doing right now isn't maximizing downforce. He's eliminating ambiguity. Notice the image. Clipboard in hand, roaming the garage, observing quietly. That's not panic, that's diagnostic mode. He's identifying which processes are robust and which are fragile. And that changes everything long term. Now consider the domino effect. If Newey successfully establishes a unified aerodynamic philosophy early in 2026, they'll accelerate exponentially in 2207 and 2208. Why? Because once correlation is fixed, development becomes linear and predictable. Think about early Red Bull under Newey. They didn't dominate instantly, but once the foundation was correct, their in-season upgrade trajectory became ruthless. Each update stacked efficiently. Aston Martin may be laying that foundation right now. And then there's Fernando Alonso. When he says it's not like Newey forgot how to design a car, that's not blind loyalty. That's experiential trust. Alonso has driven championship-winning Newey cars before. He knows how they evolve. He knows the difference between a fundamentally flawed chassis and one that simply hasn't unlocked its window. His confidence on the chassis side is absolute. His caution is directed at the power unit side. That distinction is telling because chassis performance is controllable internally. Power unit optimization involves cross-company integration with Honda. That learning curve might take longer, but once unlocked, the performance swing could be dramatic. Now, let's zoom out strategically. Lawrence Stroll's vision for Aston Martin is a 10-year project. They are roughly halfway through. The new factory, the wind tunnel, the Honda partnership, Newey's arrival. These are structural investments, not short-term gambles. So perhaps 2026 was never about instant domination. Perhaps it's about synchronization. Synchronizing gearbox philosophy with aero intent. Synchronizing suspension kinematics with floor sensitivity. Synchronizing electrical deployment with aerodynamic drag profiles. If that sounds complex, it is. But complexity is where Newey thrives. And here's the most intriguing element. Newey has already hinted the Melbourne spec car will look very different from the Barcelona version. That implies aggressive development already underway, not incremental tweaks, but visible concept evolution. That suggests confidence, because teams only pivot visibly if they believe they understand the problem. So while the paddock might interpret Bahrain as weakness, inside Aston Martin, this could be the painful calibration phase before acceleration. The midfield may simply be the visible surface of something far deeper, a team restructuring its technical DNA under one of the sport's greatest architects. And if that DNA locks in, the power balance in Formula One might shift far sooner than anyone expects. So here's the real question. Are we witnessing Aston Martin's collapse under expectation, or the painful birth of the next dominant force in Formula One? Because if Adrian Newey has truly aligned this team behind a single aerodynamic vision, the midfield may only be a temporary illusion. And by mid-season, we might be talking about a completely different power balance in the paddock. Let me know your theories in the comments. I want to see if anyone has spotted what Newey is really hiding.